Clash of Clans. Back in 2012 when the game was launched, you were probably still figuring out how to tie your shoelaces, or maybe you were too busy being yelled at by your mom or for not cleaning your room. Hey, don't shoot the messenger, we've all been there. Created by Supercell, a Finnish game development company that was probably as confused about economics as a vegan is at a steakhouse, Clash of Clans started as a humble game with a simple concept. Build a village, train an army, and destroy the villages of other players. Sounds like a typical Tuesday for Genghis Khan, right? The game was as basic as the food at your local gas station, but we all know you secretly love those 2-day-old hot dogs, don't you? The graphics were as crisp as a soggy piece of bread, and the gameplay was as smooth as riding a bicycle with square wheels. But, like that weird-looking dog at the pound that no one wants, it was oddly endearing. In the early days, the game was filled with weirdos, misfits, and people who thought spending hours of their day staring at a tiny screen was a great use of their time. Kinda like you, watching this video right now. But hey, who am I to judge? I'm just a disembodied voice talking about a mobile game. As a capitalist's wet dream, the game allowed players to use real money to buy in-game currency. Because why spend your hard-earned cash on things like rent or food when you can use it to buy digital gems? Besides, who needs a roof over their head when they have a level 10 town hall, am I right? Of course, the game wasn't without its quirks. Like that one time when the Archer Queen decided to attack a wall instead of the enemy town hall, or when your troops decided that walking into a giant bomb was a fantastic strategy. But hey, at least it wasn't as bad as trying to explain to your grandma how to use the internet. Oh, and let's not forget about the game's chat feature. It was like the Wild West of language, where grammar went to die and spelling mistakes were as common as broken promises and politics. Kinda like your last text message, but with more typos. But despite all of its flaws, Clash of Clans managed to capture our hearts, much like that one time your ex-girlfriend captured your favorite hoodie and never gave it back. But hey, at least you don't have to worry about that with Clash of Clans. The only thing this game will steal from you is your time, your money, and possibly your sanity. But who needs any of those things, right? So Clash of Clans, a game about as complex as your last relationship and probably just as destructive, but let's not dwell on the past. In the beginning, Clash of Clans was about as popular as root canal, but then something magical happened. Much like your dog discovering the trash can, players discovered the joy of destroying other people's hard work. It was pure, unadulterated chaos, and we couldn't get enough of it. Kinda like watching a marathon of reality TV shows, except with more fireballs. The game spread faster than a rumor in a high school hallway. Everyone was playing it, your best friend, your grandma, and even that weird guy from accounting who never talks to anyone. Come on, Ted. It was like a plague, but instead of bringing death and destruction, it brought dragons and wizards. Well, and destruction. So, half a plague? And then the unthinkable happened. Clash of Clans was no longer just a game. It was a phenomenon. It was more viral than the cat video you spent 3 hours watching last night. Don't deny it, we know you did. But how did this happen? Well, the same way anything becomes popular these days, through the power of social media. Because nothing says, I'm a productive member of society, like tweeting about your latest Clash of Clans victory at 3 a.m. God, I miss 2010 Twitter. Supercell, in their infinite wisdom, realized that people are about as trustworthy as a politician during campaign season, so they decided to let players form clans and fight each other, because nothing builds trust like launching a fireball at your friend's village. Am I right? Of course, no discussion about Clash of Clans could be complete without mentioning the in-game purchases. Capitalism at its finest. Who needs to spend money on silly things like college tuition or healthcare when you could buy virtual gold and elixir? Now you might be thinking, this sounds a lot like Joe Biden's economic plan. And you know what? You're not entirely wrong. After all, both involve spending a lot of money on things that don't exist. But let's not get too political here. We wouldn't want to offend anyone, or would we? And thus, Clash of Clans rose to fame, leaving a trail of broken villages and empty wallets in its wake. But hey, at least it's not as bad as your last breakup, right? Alright, you masochists, let's dive into the twisted and convoluted world of the gameplay. You know, because there's nothing you enjoy more than spending hours of your life on something that gives you absolutely nothing but virtual gems and a false sense of accomplishment in return. Sounds a lot like your job, doesn't it? Your first order of business is to build your village. Don't worry, it doesn't require any actual physical effort, so your Cheeto-stained fingers are safe. Just tap the screen a few times and voila, you've got yourself a village. If only building a real house was that easy, right? Of course, a village isn't worth much without an army to defend it, so you need to recruit some troops. You've got your barbarians, your archers, your giants. It's like a fantasy version of the United Nations, except everyone is constantly trying to kill each other. Okay. Actually, it's exactly like the United Nations. You'll also gather resources like gold and elixir. It's a bit like trying to save money in the real world. Except in Clash of Clans, no one's going to judge you for spending all your gold on a new wizard tower. Can't say the same for that life-size cutout of Chris Hemsworth you bought last week. Of course, the real real fun begins when you start attacking other players. It's like a virtual version of your passive-aggressive feud with your neighbors, except with less legal repercussions. Just remember, it's all fun and games until someone loses a wizard. But what about the strategies, you ask? Well, let's just say they're a bit like trying to figure out the plot of a Christopher Nolan movie. You think you've got everything figured out, and then bam, you're 3 layers deep in a dream, your village is on fire, and you've got no idea what's happening. And then there's the clan wars. Nothing brings people together like mutual destruction. It's like that time you and your friends tried to build IKEA furniture together, except with more dragons, and an equal amount of swearing. So there you have it. The complex, chaotic, and utterly pointless world of Clash of Clans gameplay. But hey, at least it's more productive than arguing with strangers on the internet, right? Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a clan war to start. It's like a regular war, but with more emojis and less political consequences. Oh, Clash of Clans. The game that's responsible for more destroyed relationships than Tinder and more lost productivity than Facebook. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, shall we? It's time to dive deep into the dark underbelly of this seemingly innocent game. Buckle up, you degenerates. It's about to be a bumpy ride. The first controversy that comes to mind is this game's blatant pay-to-win model. Oh, you thought you could get ahead in the game just with skill and strategy? Bless your naive little heart. The game is like a gold-digging ex-spouse, always demanding more and more money. You know, the kind who leaves you for a richer, better-looking version of you? And you thought the only thing you had in common with Jeff Bezos was your bald head. Next up, we have the infamous chat feature. It's like the Wild West in there. No laws, no rules, and everyone's shooting their mouths off. That's why they had to remove global chat, because of all the toxic behavior. If I had a gem for every time someone threatened to raid my village because I didn't want to join their clan, I'd have enough to upgrade my town hall to town hall 10. But hey, who am I to judge? I'm just a guy who spends his days making YouTube videos and about mobile games. It makes Twitter look like a monastery.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
I've seen more civil discourse at a Trump rally. What's that you're saying, Bob from Minnesota? You're going to do what to my mother? Well, at least someone's showing her a good time. Then we have the issue of addiction. Some of you play this game more than you see your own kids. And before you get all defensive, remember your Clash of Clans village can't hug you back. I wouldn't put it past you freaks to try. But perhaps the biggest controversy of all is the rampant sexism in the game. Oh, you didn't realize your sexy archer queen is now a gross stereotype? Well, I hate to break it to you, but women in real life don't typically run around in bikinis shooting arrows at people. Unless you're at a particularly wild pride parade. In which case, carry on. Finally, we come to clan wars. Oh boy. Where to start with this one? It's like a virtual version of World War II, except with more wizards and less historical accuracy. If only real wars could be settled with a game of Clash of Clans, huh? I'm looking at you, North Korea. But I digress. While Clash of Clans might be a mess of controversies and low points, it's our mess. And let's be honest, it's not like we've got anything better to do. Remember, the only thing more damaging than a maxed out cannon is a maxed out ego. Is that you fresh off your last Clash of Clans binge, I see? Don't worry, I won't tell your boss or your spouse. But let's put that aside for a moment and dive into the cesspool of culture that this game has spawned. It's like a petri dish of society's worst tendencies all conveniently packaged in a mobile app. How quaint. Now I know what you're thinking, but BlisteringFaith isn't Clash just a harmless game? Oh, you sweet summer child. It's so much more than that. It's a reflection of our society. It's a place where you can pretend to be a powerful warlord while still living in your mom's basement. Isn't technology wonderful? Let's start with clans, shall we? They're a perfect example of how we naturally gravitate towards tribalism. It's like high school all over again, except this time the jocks are nerds and the cheerleaders are, well, still cheerleaders, just pixelated ones. Let's talk about the game's impact on the real world economy. Did you know that Clash of Clans is one of the highest grossing mobile games of all time? That's right. While you were busy upgrading your town hall, Supercell was laughing all the way to the bank. It's like the 2008 financial crisis all over again, except this time you're the only one getting screwed. Now I know what some of you are thinking, but BlisteringFaith, isn't that just a fun way to pass the time? Sure, and communism was just a fun little experiment. We all know how that turned out, don't we? So the next time you're proud to spend your hard-earned money on gems, just remember, Stalin would be proud. But hey, who am I to judge? I'm just a guy who gets paid to make fun of people like you. So keep flashing, my friends. Your village might be a mess, but at least it's not as bad as your real life. And remember, in the words of a wise man, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Or in this case, for good men to spend all their time playing mobile games. But hey, who's keeping track? Well, look who it is. Our Clash of Clans addicts back for another hit. I swear you guys are like lab rats pressing a button for a dopamine reward. Let's talk about the major game updates, shall we? Oh, how they've metamorphosized this game into a beautiful butterfly made of money. It's like watching a caterpillar turn into a moth, only to realize that it's just another cash cow. No, seriously, have you seen the price of these updates? It's like they're trying to fund a small fascist regime. Now, let's not forget about the impact of these updates. They hit harder than a drunken stepfather. You know what I'm talking about. You finally get your village just the way you want it, and then bam, update time. Now your precious town hall is as useless as a chocolate teapot, and you're back at square one. But hey, that's the beauty of the game, right? It's like a never-ending cycle of disappointment, just like your love life.
Nice.
Too close to home? Well, don't worry, because in Clash of Clans, you can always just buy your way to happiness. It's just like real life, but with less crying. Speaking of crying, let's talk about the new troops. Nothing brings a tear to my eye faster than seeing a grown man cry over a cartoon character. But I guess that's what happens when you spend more time with your troops than with your family. But hey, don't feel bad. At least your troops appreciate you. They'll follow you into battle, die for you, and never complain. It's like they're the perfect soldiers, or the perfect wives. I'm kidding. We all know there's no such thing as a perfect wife. Just like there's no such thing as a perfect game update. and that, my friends, brings us to the end of Scene 6. We've laughed, we've cried, we've made uncomfortable comparisons, but don't worry, the fun isn't over yet, because next up, we're diving into our last scene, which is gonna be the future of Clash of Clans. But before we get there, remember, the only thing more tragic than your Clash of Clans addiction is, well, nothing. Your Clash of Clans addiction is the most tragic thing. Here we are, folks, at the end of our journey. You've stuck with me through the highs and the lows, the updates and the overhauls, and the countless offensive jokes. It's like we're in an abusive relationship, and I'm the charming yet emotionally unavailable partner. But enough about my dating life. Let's talk about the legacy and future of Clash of Clans. First off, the legacy. Ah yes, the nostalgic days when you'd come home from a long day of being a disappointment to your parents, only to find solace in your virtual village. Remember when you first started playing Clash of Clans? You were young, naive, and had no idea that one day you'd be trading your social life for a higher clan ranking. But look at you now, top of the leaderboard and bottom of the social totem pole. You are a true leader.
Emotional damage.
In a world that doesn't matter. And what about the future of the game? It's as uncertain as a woman's mood. One minute it's all sunshine and rainbows, the next it's nerfing your favorite troops and introducing new ones that cost an arm and a leg. But hey, that's the beauty of it. It's like dating a woman, but without the heartbreak and alimony. But let's not forget about the community. Oh, the community. It's like a melting pot of dissatisfaction and misplaced anger. Kind of like a family reunion, but with less alcohol and more keyboard warriors. It's a place where you can be yourself and by yourself. I mean, a petty, vindictive virtual warlord, more like. But despite all of its flaws, we love this game, don't we? It's like that one ex you keep going back to even though you know they're bad for you, but there's something comforting about the familiarity, the routine, the endless cycle of build, attack, rebuild. It's like a metaphor of life, but with less existential dread and more dragons. And with that, we've reached the end of our journey. It's been a wild ride, full of laughter, tears, and a concerning amount of similes. But remember, it's all in good fun. After all, if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at? Besides everyone else, obviously. So until next time, keep clashing, keep laughing, and remember, the only thing more painful than losing a battle is, well, nothing. Losing a battle is the most painful thing possible. See you next time.